an in-depth analysis of the Tower of Babel, exploring its builders, its potential location, and the enduring debate over whether it represents myth or historical fact. Is the biblical account of the Tower of Babel a literal record of events, or is it a foundational legend crafted by ancient peoples for theological and social purposes? These and other compelling questions will be explored in this comprehensive examination. If you appreciate content that delves into the depths of faith, history, and ancient mysteries, we invite you to subscribe to Prayer Braze. Like this video, leave a comment with your thoughts, and activate the notification bell so you won't miss any of our future investigations. The story of the Tower of Babel is, without question, one of the most resonant and enduring narratives from antiquity. It has persevered through millennia, echoing in diverse beliefs, cultures, and traditions across the globe. Recorded in the book of Genesis, the first book of the Holy Bible, it offers a profound explanation for the origin of the world's many languages and the fragmentation of human societies. For historians, theologians, and scholars of ancient texts, the account is often considered a foundational myth, a narrative that provides a theological framework for understanding human diversity, the complexities of civilization, and humanity's relationship with the divine. Yet for others, particularly those who adhere to a literal interpretation of Scripture, the story is a historical record of a real event that shaped the course of human history. This duality, myth versus history, continues to spark debate and fascination. The biblical narrative found in Genesis chapter 11 begins in the land of Shinar, a historical region corresponding to Sumer in southern Mesopotamia, sometime after the Great Flood described in Genesis. At this point, the text states, the whole world had one language and a common speech. As humanity migrated eastward, they settled on the fertile plains of Shinar, and driven by a collective ambition, resolved to build a city with a great tower whose top would reach to the heavens. Their stated goal was twofold: to create a monumental landmark that would establish their fame and legacy, let us make a name for ourselves, and to prevent their community from being scattered over the face of the whole earth. This vision of unity and grandeur reflects a deep human desire to achieve immortality through monumental works and to resist the fragmentation of society. However, in the biblical account, this endeavor was not viewed as a triumph of human ingenuity, but as an act of profound hubris. God observes the construction of the tower and expresses concern over humanity's unified ambition, stating, "If as one people speaking the same language they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them." To thwart what is portrayed as a challenge to divine authority, God intervenes by confusing their language, making it impossible for the builders to communicate and cooperate effectively. The immediate consequence was the cessation of all construction work. The grand project was abandoned, and humanity was scattered across the globe, fulfilling the very outcome the tower was intended to prevent. The city was named Babel, derived from the Hebrew verb balal, meaning to confuse, because it was there that the Lord confused the languages of the world, giving rise to the diversity of tongues that characterizes human civilization. The character traditionally associated with this ambitious project is Nimrod, a descendant of Noah's son Ham. Genesis chapter 10 describes Nimrod as a mighty hunter before the Lord, and establishes him as a powerful king whose domain included Babel, along with other significant cities such as Erech, Uruk, Akkad, and Calneh in the land of Shinar. While the biblical text does not explicitly name Nimrod as the tower's builder, his association with Babel and his reputation as a formidable empire-building figure have led Jewish, Christian, and Islamic traditions to identify him as the defiant leader behind the project. In later traditions, particularly in Jewish Midrash and Islamic exegesis, Nimrod is portrayed as a tyrannical ruler who sought to challenge God's sovereignty, cementing his role as the antagonist in the Tower of Babel narrative. We are continuing to delve into the facts and narratives. If this content is proving insightful, please like and share. Stay with us on this journey at Prayer Braze. From a historical and archaeological standpoint, the story of the Tower of Babel is not treated as a literal event by most scholars, but is seen as rooted in the realities of ancient Mesopotamia. Scholars agree that if a physical structure inspired the legend, it was likely a ziggurat, a massive stepped temple tower that dominated Mesopotamian city skylines. Developed by the Sumerians around 3000 BC, ziggurats were not tombs like Egyptian pyramids, but sacred spaces designed to connect the earthly and divine realms. At each ziggurat's summit stood a temple, believed to be the dwelling place of a city's patron deity, where priests performed rituals to honor the gods. The most prominent candidate for the historical Tower of Babel is the Ziggurat of Babylon, known as Etemenanke, meaning Temple of the Foundation of Heaven and Earth. Dedicated to Marduk, Babylon's supreme god, Etemenanke was a monumental structure at the city's heart. Historical records and archaeological evidence show it was repeatedly built, destroyed, and restored over centuries by Mesopotamian kings. Its most famous restorer was Nebuchadnezzar II, the Neo-Babylonian emperor of the 6th century BC, known for the Babylonian captivity and the Hanging Gardens, one of the 7 wonders. A key piece of evidence linking Etemenanke to the biblical tower is the Tower of Babel stele, discovered in the early 20th century and dating to Nebuchadnezzar II's reign. This artifact features a carving of the king beside a 7-tiered ziggurat, presumed to be Etemenanke. Its cuneiform inscription identifies the structure and records Nebuchadnezzar's boast of raising the tower to vie with the heavens, mirroring the biblical narrative's description of a tower meant to reach to the heavens. This first-hand account connects the biblical story to ancient Babylon's realities. The biblical narrative also finds parallels in older Mesopotamian literature. The Sumerian epic Enmerkar and the Lord of Aratta, predating Genesis, describes a time when humanity spoke one language. It recounts how the god Enki altered human speech, causing linguistic confusion. This myth suggests the Genesis authors drew on a regional tradition of divine disruption of a universal language. The construction details in Genesis 11:3, they used brick instead of stone and tar for mortar, are archaeologically accurate. Southern Mesopotamia's alluvial plains lacked stone, so kiln-fired mud bricks were the primary building material for ziggurats. Bitumen, a natural tar from modern-day Iraq, was used as mortar. Excavations of Etemenanke confirm these materials, supporting the idea that the biblical story was inspired by Mesopotamian architecture. Theologically, the story warns of hubris and human limits. The builders' desire to make a name for themselves reflects a focus on self-glorification over divine will. God's intervention is corrective, fostering cultural diversity through scattered peoples and languages. Anthropologically, the narrative explains human diversity, reflecting Mesopotamia's cosmopolitan environment and tensions between urban and nomadic lifestyles. The debate over whether the Tower of Babel is myth or history persists. For literalists, it's a historical event of divine intervention. For others, it's an allegorical tale rooted in Mesopotamia's context, conveying theological truths. Its enduring power lies in addressing human ambition, language's role, and cultural diversity. The story reflects Mesopotamia's ziggurats, kings, and myths of lost linguistic unity. It's a testament to humanity's quest to reach the heavens, shaping history and imagination. For more on history and faith, subscribe to Prayer Braze. Thank you, and see you in our next exploration.